Yeah, I would say that there were periods of both. I think that the polarity of having that something so close and then ripped away from you, you have these polarizing feelings at times where you're like, I was so close, I can do it again. And then in the next moment, you feel like you'll never get there and the road is longer than it's ever been. Because when you lose a title shot, it's like you go to the back of the bus. You know what I mean? It's not like it's close anymore. It's like that was the opportunity and you missed it, and it may never come again. I mean, an opportunity to fight for a world title sometimes is a one shot deal. So it's both. It's like I want that more than anything ever. I want to get back there and I will do whatever it takes. But then you get self-defeating sometimes, and it's this cycle of like, I've got to get there. Oh my God, but how? Now the road is so long, everyone's in front of me again. How am I going to possibly ever make that happen? And it goes to setting the small goals. I'm just going to go to practice today. And then tomorrow, you know what? I'm going to ask for a fight. I'm going to get that lined up, and I'm just going to keep chipping away at this tree until I knock it down again. But it's the most frustrating feeling to be that close and then all the way back, to square zero is what it feels like.
I think what's unique about combat sports is like you guys can't fight that often, right? So you have this huge period where you have to wait. I mean, I think what fighting probably 3 times in a year would be a busy year, right? Maybe so it's like you might have to wait 6 months. And I'm comparing it to other sports. I was a football guy. It's like if you had a bad game, you went in on Sunday, you watched tape, you got chewed out on tape with your buddies and you all watched it. And then you got back, Monday morning, you're practicing again, you're prepping for the next appointment or next opponent that Saturday, right? So it was like, it was short-term memory and you knew you could redeem yourself immediately, where you guys, not only did you slide down in the rankings, but now you have to like wait 4 or 5 months before you can even get back to getting some traction again in the right direction. And that has to be such a difficult thing to overcome, particularly the style of training you all do day in and day out in the gym is a grind. Getting punched in the face is not enjoyable. You know what I mean? You get dinged and you get injured and, everything that comes with that. And there's such a wait period until your next, chance so it's thinking and framing it up like that. It's like, man, you really got to have the right mentality and a lot of mental toughness to be able to go through that.
You couldn't be more spot on with that, Bear. And that's something that I've thought about too when you're in an individual sport, and especially one like fighting, is that when you have a loss, you oftentimes have to sit on that. And it's like you're choking on it for months until you get an opportunity at redemption. And I remember at that stage in my life, I was very much identifying my value with my outcome. So if I won, I was a winner. And if I lost, I was a loser. And if you lose with an injury or a suspension, you may be out for 6 months. You may be out for longer. So you're sitting on that feeling of I am a loser for such an extended period of time that I think it can really put you in a state of mental dismantle where you just start to get so upset with yourself or you want to do more. And this is sometimes where athletes come back too soon. They want to be in the gym. And I was just talking to a buddy of mine who I haven't seen almost probably 9 months because he had surgery on his knee, ACL repair. And I said, hey, so are you cleared to train? And he said, no, I'm not actually cleared to train for another few months, but I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't stand it. So I'm in the gym and I was like, well, just try to listen to yourself. And he's like, we never listen to ourselves. It's like the mother bear in me wants to be like, hey, but you have to listen. Like, I get that you want to move your body and athletes tend to heal quicker. And we just have a different kind of way of thinking of how we want to approach and tackle situations. But there's a prime example of somebody who is kind of sulking at home months on end after a loss, after a surgery, who's just kind of going stir crazy. And I don't think that's an uncommon thing for athletes to experience. And in our sport, the unfortunate part is we don't get to compete very often. I mean, if you were competing every other month, that would be pretty outstanding. And there are a few fighters on the roster, maybe like Cowboy Cerrone, who has now retired, and Kevin Holland. And there's a few guys who are kind of afforded that opportunity. They've kind of made their reputation off of like fighting all the time, and they'll take the short notice fights, and they'll take the risks, and they win some, they lose some. But their love for the fans for that reason, and the UFC kind of grants that. But not everybody gets that opportunity. I know fighters that are begging for fights all the time, and they're lucky if they get a fight every 3 months. You know, it's kind of like a 3 to 6 month average turnaround. So 3 fights a year is like you're doing good. That's like 100 out of 100. Like you're getting the fights. You know, that's max. Usually we don't get more than that.
So, Miesha, did you find yourself riding a bit of a roller coaster in those years as far as when things were good and you were winning, you were on a high, but then when you were losing, things got low? Was that not only, I know you said your mental state was that way, but did you see even your habits outside of fighting? Did you see it having negative or positive effects on those kind of lateral things as well, depending on how you were performing in the ring?
Yeah, I think that you're setting it up perfectly, because that is exactly what it was like when I was in that lost state and I was a loser in my mind. It carried over into everything, and it was really kind of a sickening mentality to have. And I am still to this day trying to distinguish whether that is a necessary thing for athletes to be the best in the world or whether it's not, because it's certainly a terrible skill set to have for life. It is performance enhancing as far as like you will isolate to one tiny thing that you do well, and you're hyper focused, and it's fighting and nothing else matters. That means I will miss funerals, I will miss Christmas, I will miss weddings, I will miss family outings. Like I will miss everything that makes life worth living to obtain and acquire the best result that I can get in this, because that is who I am now. The rest of this is just outside noise. Problem is that being an athlete is a relatively short-lived career. So having that mindset doesn't set us up for success later when it comes to valuing other things in our life, because we don't. We only value the one thing in our life, and we have to be hyper focused on that. And I find this is really common. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the documentary film The Weight of Gold, but if you haven't watched it, I would recommend it. It talks about a lot of Olympians and very high level athletes, mostly Olympians actually, and the sickening mindset. Imagine only getting to really compete every 4 years. Oh my god, I think
It's crazy.
that would be.
Crazy.
I mean, I can't. And if you're silver or bronze, even, it's just like you don't even matter. It's just about the gold medalists. Like, how crazy is that, right? Um, so I guess when you're saying like, did it affect the other parts of my life? Yes, absolutely, because I didn't know how to live for anything else than that at that time, and it's a sick obsession. And as I mentioned, I'm still trying to distinguish whether that is a necessary evil or if that is just the less ideal way um, to do it and still get it done. You know, it's kind of like maybe think about like breaking a horse. You know, that there's some people who will go out and they'll break the horse, and they'll get the horse to obey through just breaking their spirit. But then there's other people who will form a relationship with the horse and get the horse to actually trust them, and then they have a bond. Now, you may get faster results with breaking the horse because the horse is going to realize, like, I have no other way out but to listen. But the moment they get a chance to stomp your ass, they probably will. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like this fight that's going on there, that the horse is listening because it doesn't have a choice. And I feel like sometimes we put that pressure on ourselves as athletes, like we don't give ourselves a choice to be human or to feel anything else or experience anything else. And whereas I think there is a healthier way, but I don't know if I've seen it done yet. I think there's a way where we can kind of balance our mental and listen to ourselves and be more in tune as humans and be happier about the journey as opposed to just being hyper focused about the journey. But I don't know if that's true or not. To be honest, I don't know. I hope that it's true, and that's what I'm kind of here right now at that point in my life, trying to see if I can make that connection, because I certainly now value so much more than just fighting. And so it's an interesting place to be at.
That's a fascinating topic to dive into, because we've talked about this already on the podcast, is the idea that by having a relentless pursuit towards something, it can create collateral damage in other aspects of your life. And it sounds like maybe you experience that as well. And it's not like it's malicious. It's just you're competitive, you're type A, and you're striving towards a goal, and you're obsessed. And you're kind of posing the question, like, is that the right approach? And I don't know the right answer either, but my intuition is that for a specific period of time, you might have to have that mentality to be the best. And there's no other way around it. But as long as you identify, and it's very calculated, okay, for the next 5 years, this is my window to be a champion, to make money for my family, to get endorsement deals, et cetera, I have to cut out all the noise and maybe sacrifice some balance in my life, because the ends will justify the means. So, maybe you're not going to those weddings and the bachelorette parties and all that, because, hey, you got to be in bed by 9 because you got to be recover so you can train hard the next day because you want to be a champion. And you do that for a specific amount of time. And I think anyone at the highest level, there are some exceptions. I think people that are just naturally crazy talented can get away with giving like an 80% effort and still being elite. But to get to that 0.1%, unless you're one of those
I hate
crazy
those people.
unless you're one of those outliers, you have to be obsessed. And it's unavoidable that there's going to be things that you have to sacrifice. But to your point, it's like at some point you got to be able to reel that in, because that can't just become how you're programmed, in perpetuity. Like you have to at least have self-awareness of, okay, when that time has come and gone, I have to be able to reprogram to realize there's more to life than just being a champion in the UFC or being the best golfer in the world, or, whatever it is you're chasing.
Yes.